Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
On behalf of Whitetail Rendezvous, this is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and I want to say thank you to everybody for making 2016 a banner year. Why? Because we went over 100,000 iTunes downloads. Why? Because we had over 300 guests on the show. And talking about the show, sometimes my guests are in a tree stand, sitting in a pickup truck on the top of a hill, or just don't have great bandwidth to pick up the recording. So I apologize for that. We're doing the best we can, but this is a real show with real people in real places.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 310.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and we're going to meet up with Jim McPherson. Now, Jim's out of Northeast Missouri, and he's come up with a product he calls Outdoor Metrics. And the reason I'm having it on the show today is because this product can help us find out where the deer are, tag our setups, check out funnels, check out pinch points, and all in all, build a digital log. And a lot of us have logs, but sometimes they get wet, sometimes we forget to write in them. So this comes right along with you in your smartphone. And Jim's quite a hunter, so it's not going to be an infomercial, folks. It's going to be about why he created this product, because he is a deer hunter, a duck hunter, and a turkey hunter. So listen up. You're going to learn a lot about some resources that may help you in the field next year. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Hey, folks, just really quick, on Sunday we hit 100,002 iTunes downloads, so thanks for all the listeners. Today we're heading down to Northeast Missouri with Jim McPherson. Now, Jim is the creator of Outdoor Metrics. He is also a passionate whitetail hunter, waterfowler, and turkeys. So, Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, thanks for having me this morning.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you because technology is a big part of our lives. People, I remember the first time I went whitetail hunting over 50 years ago. I had a pair of boots. I had something red. I had a red cap. Had a J.C. Higgins 12-gauge shotgun. I had a box of slugs, and I had a knife. That was it. That was it. And I hunted a family farm, so we knew where the deer were, and we went and shot some deer. And that's as simple as it was. And today, it's unbelievable. So why don't you share just a little bit on the front end here, just about Outdoor Metrics and why you created it?
Okay, sure, absolutely. Well, in a nutshell, what Outdoor Metrics is a web-based logbook for hunters. It's the real purpose of it, though, is not just necessarily logging the hunts, but also understanding and analyzing the data that is contained within your hunts. And so it's a logbook and a dashboard, an analysis tool, if you will, sort of like Runkeeper and MapMyFitness, all these fitness apps that are out there for exercise enthusiasts. But really the reason that we created this, I think, is just born out of our own experience. We've been keeping a logbook on our own farm for a decade, have probably close to 260 deer hunts that we've logged, and it was all done in written form, just like probably most guys out there keeping a notebook or something. But we really couldn't interpret or analyze or summarize any of that data, and so we just had the idea of building it into an application that would give hunters sort of the benefits of all that database intelligence and analytics and things like that. Make sense?
It does make sense. Now, let's talk about, you just said it was born out of keeping journals. Now, I remember hearing stories about Fred Bear, and he kept a journal every single sit hunt that he was on. And, the times I've done that, especially fishing, I love to fish, and sometimes my paper would get wet. Sometimes, stuff would happen, and then I'd lose. Okay, at 2:00, blue wing olives came off. The wind was from the west. The temperature was this. The water temperature was that. What kind of rises we had. I mean, we had thorough books because that's I was deep into fly fishing, and over the years, I said, man, I got 10 years of books. How do I put this? How do I digitize it? Now this is back in the 70s and the 80s when I was fly fishing so much, and I never figured it out. Now lo and behold, there's many different ways you can do it. So let's talk about the 3 to 5 advantages of using a digital book or notebook or
why do it in electronic form instead of printed form? Well, I think the number one thing is you have the ability to summarize all that data. You can basically look at all those logs and put the data together and come up with trends or patterns or other sort of things that you can analyze. You can kind of decipher different things, and you can look at which stands might be the most productive. Or you could, like in your example, you could look at what kind of weather conditions were triggering the hatches that you were recording. There's another reason will be it's just a lot easier to do it electronically. So, for example, we can just attach the weather conditions to your log. You don't have to enter the weather conditions. If you're in a written format like your old notebook, you got to record, the hatch, the conditions, the type of flies you were using, the way that you were fishing, the time of day, all that. And then you also got to try to record the weather, which it's just too difficult, too time consuming. I think that's why most guys don't keep a log, is because there's no real return or reward for it, and it's time consuming to do it. So this makes it faster and easier. And then on top of that, you get the benefits of all the data analysis that comes with it.
Yeah, you think of data. We're inundated with data, but I sit here with my smartphone and I can do a gazillion things. It's a computer. That just happens to be a phone. And I think of all the places. I was on a sheep hunt in August, and once I had cell coverage, once I had coverage bandwidth, then I could communicate with thousands of people on my social media, with just a couple of 10 seconds. And it's just amazing where we live. Now, are you going to be at ATA?
No, sir.
Okay, because that's a good place to launch products. I was going to say, boy, I'd love to come by your booth and talk to you.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back. Let's switch it up a little bit, and we'll talk more about Outdoor Matrix. But let's talk about your hunting tradition. Where'd that come from?
Oh, well, I think I just grew up in the woods. When I was a kid, we lived in St. Charles, Missouri. It was really still pretty rural back in the 70s. I had 1,000 acres of farmland right out my back door. And, just a little boy just running around in the woods with a BB gun. As I got older, I started fishing a lot. Typical thing here in Missouri would be bass and crappie. And when I was old enough, I started bow hunting. It was, I didn't have a place to go, but bow hunt you could do on public ground fairly easily. And, you could get the equipment you needed from an archery point of view. And I just fell in love with it. Every chance I got, probably from the time I was 14 on, I was in a tree stand somewhere or in the woods. Most of the time I was probably just hiking with a bow more than I was hunting, because I was learning as I went. But, that's how it started. And then from there, we quickly started turkey hunting. Like I said, we grew up in the heyday here for wild turkeys in Missouri, and it still is. The turkey hunt is still phenomenal. But I just grew up in the woods and, fell in love with it. That was the thing I was most passionate about just growing up as a kid.
Now, tell me about turkey hunting. Now, you said in the warm-up, I headed up to Wyoming, and we were shooting prairie dogs and coyote, doing some predator work in the springtime. And the guy said, "You ever kill a turkey?" I go, "Nope." And so we ended up killing a nice tom turkey. I got his fan on my wall, and that's the only turkey I've ever killed. And we called him in, and that was that. And I'm trying to wrap my arms around, or my head around, what's so magic about turkey hunting. Share that with me, because there's probably a lot of whitetail hunters that haven't hunted turkeys.
Well, I'm guessing most whitetail guys have probably done some turkey hunting of some kind, but there's so many things about it. For one, it's a whole nother time of year to be in the woods. There's something about the woods in the springtime before the woods are too thick. They're starting to green up. There's morels popping. The sights and sounds of the spring woods are just something beautiful in and of themselves. But then you get the sound of turkeys gobbling. You get the activity, coming off of a fall season where you're stationary for the most part, hunting deer out of a tree stand. It's a great alternative. You get out, you hike, you cover some country. It's much more active, in my opinion. You're calling, you're seeking birds, you're doing all these different things that really you don't quite do the same way in deer hunt. Maybe it's similar to elk hunting. I wouldn't know about elk hunting, but and I don't know, man, there's something magical about seeing a bird in full strut within shotgun range when you can see the iridescent colors on their feathers and everything. It's just it's like 3D. It's so vivid. I don't know. It's a neat time of year to be out there, and nature of turkey hunt is very active, and you're engaged with those birds, and just makes it something unique in my mind altogether.
Well, the only thing I can think of, the way I like to hunt turkeys when I do is run and gun. I really don't want to sit down in a tree and call them in, because that's no different than duck calling, elk calling, or deer vocalization. I'm sitting there waiting for them to come to me, and I've never had the experience of saying, okay, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to, spot and stalk, and then get up on them, and then you vocalize them. Then you have them come to you. Now that's exciting. No question about it. No matter what kind of animal. I think of watching a trout come out of the stream and just rise up, open his mouth, and sip in your fly. That's exciting. I mean, that's just flat out exciting. So when you say that, I guess I need to experience the run and gun of turkey hunting, and maybe somebody will make me a purist, so I'll set up my decoys and sit there and gobble, gobble, and put in everything else they do.
Yeah, we kill as many birds by sneaking up on them and maneuvering on them as we do by calling them in. It seemed like when we were younger, they responded a lot better to calling, but most of the time now, I'd say probably half of our birds or more, we kill them just by putting a sneak on them, as we call it. We figure out where they're at, and they don't want to come in because there's so many birds together, and we have to figure out how to maneuver on them. So it's real active. Like you said, it's the opposite of deer hunting.
Yeah, because you can spot and stalk other critters, but I think that would really be fun on a turkey, because they got so many eyes, especially in their flock, and they're wary birds. I remember back in New England when I was growing up, there were a few turkeys back then, and if anybody shot a tom, it was the whole town knew about it.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, the conservation departments have fixed that problem, and now there's 6 million some odd turkeys in the U.S. So there's enough of them to go around now.
Now let's go to the duck blind. Now, how did duck hunting help you become a better deer hunter?
Well, that's a tough question. I'm not sure if I've necessarily correlated the two. I think probably in reality, duck hunting keeps me fresh as a deer hunter. What we do is we generally deer hunt the hardest in the first few weeks in November, and I mean we get burnt out. You spend 8 days in a row on a tree stand. It gets to be kind of tough, and so duck hunting is a change of pace. Ducks can't smell you. They're not necessarily nocturnal, although we sometimes think they are, and you can hang out with your buddies, and so it makes you it keeps you fresh as a deer hunter. Probably is the main thing. I'm not sure there's a lot of correlations from a strategy standpoint, other than, just being a good, smart outdoorsman. But probably the main thing is it keeps you fresh as a deer hunter, makes you, variety is a spice of life kind of thing.
Yeah, one thing that I found, especially hunting grain-fed mallards that come into the beans or the corn, my layout had to be right. My camouflage had to be right. My blind had to be right, and then my calls had to be right. Yeah, once you get ducks on the ground, to me it's stupid, because you just shut up and wait till the ducks, start hammering in, and mallards are a little bit different than snow geese. And snow geese, you might have 5,000, 10,000 birds above your head spiraling down, and then once you shoot, well, they kind of leave.
Yeah.
But not so with mallards, because they come in 2s and 3s. Yeah, there's some big flocks, but they'll pump off and, as they say, web feet down. So, the patience and the setup, I think hunting, not on the water, but in grain fields, it's a lot like deer hunting, because you've got to have the wind right, you've got to have your blind set up right. There's a lot of things that got to be right. Then you got to talk right. So that's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents on duck hunting on grain fields with as opposed to deer hunting. And patience, they both need patience.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and probably, like you said, the being hidden correctly, whether you're in a tree stand or in a layout blind or a layout boat or something, you gotta take some extra caution there to make sure you're hidden well. That's for sure. And
I think bring it back to your digital book there and notebook. Do you use that for all game, or you just use it for whitetails?
Yeah, good question. Right now it's set up for waterfowl, turkeys, and whitetail. Naturally, that's what we've done here, and that's what we know the most about. We plan to expand it to support elk and pronghorn and predators and just about any type of hunting that you could do. But we started with deer, waterfowl, and turkeys.
Now, let's tell the people right now how to get in touch with you guys. How can they reach out and say, hey, I want to get a trial on this? Since it's digital, I'm assuming that you have, trial periods for them, or the availability, just to buy a subscription product. It's digital, so they log into to a site. Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly. You just go to outdoormetrics.com. That's outdoormetrics with an X. .com, and you just sign up, and it's a free trial. Most guys, I think the average guy hunts somewhere between 15 and 18 days a year. We have the trial period set up to where you log up to 10 hunts, and if you need more than 10, then you upgrade. But everybody can try the application out for free, and you get all the features of the application. You get to basically mark your spots, your stands, your blinds, and then log your hunts and kind of get a feel for the dashboards and what the dashboards give you from an information point of view. So outdoormetrics.com, it's a free sign up, free trial. You could also hit us up on Facebook. We're out there, Outdoor Metrics, and also on Twitter, of course, at Outdoor Metrics. So a couple different ways people can find us.
Now, can I overlay maps, or does it have map overlays, topographic maps overlays?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. The other part of the idea for us came from what we call the kill chart. We have an aerial photo on our cabin, and we would mark every little spot that we killed something. A turkey kill, we'd have a little red dot. A buck, we'd have a little black X. And so besides the logbook itself, the kill chart or the map was half of the equation. So what we've done here is we kind of merged them. So when you use the application, you start on a map. And the map interface is the primary interface. You find where you're at, you put your tree stand there, or you put your duck blind, or you put a little, marker that says, hey, this is a spot where we duck hunted. And then you create the log from there. So everything's really done from the map. So every log has a GPS location that goes with it. And that's how, for example, we're able to attach the weather data, because we'll have the GPS for the log. But everything starts with a map. And so besides the dashboards, you get a map visualization that shows you where all your hunting spots are. Imagine, what you were telling me, all the places you've hunted in your whole life. What if you had a little, red dot or a blue dot or something on every one of those places you ever hunted or fished in your life? How cool would that be to be able to sort of look back on that and see all that from Wisconsin to Alaska to, just think about that. How cool would that be? So a lot of it starts from the map. And that's where you do your logging and your marking.
Yeah, I use Google Earth, and it's funny. I was laughing.
Yep.
I was laughing because, there's one unit that, I've killed a few elk, and if I take it from the highest height, it's 30,000 feet. All the pins are clustered. It's like just
yep.
And just the same with fishing, and that's one thing I love Google Earth. I can put a pin anywhere, but that's all I have. I have a pin and I have some pictures. Now, if I could transfer that to where when I'm in Unit 2 hunting and I down another nice bull or a cow, or I take an animal, then I can put there. But automatically, if I hear what you're saying, then I'm standing there with, of course, bandwidth, and I go, okay, here's the date, here's the times, here's the weather, here's everything that I could dump into that, because I'm sure it's searchable. And I should ask you that before I assume that. Now, can you search this database to say, okay, when have I killed the most ducks in October? Can it do that?
Yeah, that's exactly the idea. First of all, I would say it's your database. It's meant to be a private logbook. It's not intended to be a social thing where everyone else can see all your data. This is just your data. But that's exactly the point. You can go back in time and see when things were hot, when things were not hot, all of that kind of stuff. That's exactly the point.
Yeah, especially, I do a lot of work, during the rut period, talking to people from various across the country about the rut and the status of the rut. And if they had a device like this, then they could just say, okay, I'm sitting in a stand, northwest, east, Buffalo, Mandovi Creek and Buffalo River, bottoms, cold, wind blowing out of the southwest, front just came through, Mr. Buck should be here at any time, type thing, bam, and I'm done. Now, where does that go? Can I download that right to my PC?
Well, it's a web application, so you can hit it from your laptop, your phone, browser, any device. It's all the same. And you can log hunts from 5 different devices, but you're feeding the same web application in the background, and so then you can see all that log data from any of those devices again.
Okay, so Outdoor Metrics / Whitetail Rendezvous. That's my account.
If that's how you created your account, just your email and password, that you have to create for an account.
Right.
But I want to go back to something you were just pointing out, like so from a point of view of kind of understanding, well, when's this buck going to be here, or what was the conditions like before? Now, one of the other things that you log is activity that you see. So of course you log what you saw, how many does, how many bucks, how many quality bucks, but you also log the behaviors. So we log whether or not the deer were chasing, feeding, bedding, fighting, scraping, rubbing, breeding, any of that. And so now when you look at the results from over time, I can go back and I can say, okay, last year during the first week of November, what were the deer doing the most? Were they chasing? What was the behavior at that time? And you can say, okay, last year, first week of November, we recorded that most of the time they were just traveling and feeding. We didn't see a lot of chasing in the first week. Well, why? Well, maybe last week the weather conditions were really warm. Well, this year, first week, we recorded chasing almost every time we were hunting. And so now you can kind of compare year over year, what were the behaviors that you saw, and why the heck was it like that? Was it the weather? Was it some food sources, or whatever it was? So I just wanted to circle back on something you touched on there, because I think it's kind of a cool cool angle to the whole thing.
Now, what about your competition? I know you're not the only cowboy, in the rodeo here.
Yeah.
What makes you think that you can bring this product to market and be successful with it?
Well, I guess we're banking on our own passion and subject matter expertise here a little bit. When we first started doing this in 2014, there weren't a whole lot of apps or technology software apps for hunters, and in the last couple of years it's just gone crazy. On one hand, that's encouraging because I think that's just indicative of the fact that the market's going to come there, and hunters are going to be using tools like this just like they use trail cameras. 15 years ago you didn't have any trail cameras, and now there's not a whitetail hunter out there that doesn't have at least a couple. So it's encouraging to see Scout Look and Deer Tracker and these different apps that are out there. And they're all good, and they've all got some interesting things that they do. For us, I think that the most thing we're focused on most is the database analytics, sort of like sabermetrics for deer hunters. Sabermetrics being the baseball stats. It's that sort of advanced analytics for deer hunters. So it's good to see other people doing the same stuff or similar things. It just shows that there's a market for this stuff, hopefully, and it's fun to be kind of in the early stages of it, hopefully. So
sounds like Moneyball to me. I don't know if you ever saw that when the athletic.
I haven't seen that, but
you should see it, because that's exactly the GM found a smart technology kid, and said, okay, how can we do this? Because I only got so much money, and what do I have to do? And then they started drilling down. This guy might be 39 years old, but look at his base on balls, blah blah blah, and they had all the stats, and that's how they built their team until such time as I remember in the movie, the Red Sox wanted him to come out there and do the exact same thing for a lot of money. He didn't, but it was called Moneyball, and then that's what it was all about. Is that so? Listeners, take heed about what Jim's saying, and if it's his tool, great. But today, knowledge is at your fingertips, and if you're going to be a 365 hunter, you're in. It's January, February, March. You're looking for sheds. You find sheds. You're finding specific trails. You see the bedding grounds. You see where the deer are going in wintertime, and then you act accordingly when you start opening up your food plots. And once you open your food plots, then you're taking inventory. You're long distance scouting, taking inventory of who's eating what. You're putting up the little cages so you can see how they're hammering it, and they're not hammering the cage stuff, so you can see, hey, we got too much, too little. That helps you with the buck-doe ratio. Then you start getting into August time when the horns are hardening up, and they're no longer with the does, and they're all only feeding all together. They're kind of off by themselves, and then we get into late August, September, and game on, because they're all thinking about, okay, I'm the dominant buck, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So if you could take all that data I just said in 3 minutes or less and digitize that, and then have it on your hand, and then study it and put to maps, and say a fire went through, how's that gonna change things up? You had a flood, the bottomlands are flooded, which happens, and okay, how am I going to change it up? And that makes you a better hunter. And so that's why I wanted Jim on the phone, because I want everybody out here to be better hunters and to think, okay, what tools can I use? How can I become a better hunter 365 days a year? Because more and more mature bucks are killing. We're letting the young ones go so they can grow. The industry is changing because people are saying, hey, I want to see big deer on my trail cameras and know that he's out there. Whether or not I'm going to get him, I don't know. But to me, that's what this discussion was about. And Jim, we got just a couple minutes for you to give shout-outs, and then we'll call it a show.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Probably one of the most interesting statistics that we gleaned from all this, Bruce, was the average number of hours that you need to sit in a tree stand in order to see a quality buck. And it was really funny when I first started doing this. I asked all my buddies, like, hey, how long do you think you got to sit in a stand before you see a good shooter? And guys were saying, all week, 40 hours, 50 hours. When we crunched the numbers, we saw over our decade on our farm, it was 10 hours. And so now, like, okay, that's just a statistic, but everyone had a little different pep in their step. They didn't realize it was that frequent that we were seeing shooters. And so just one statistic like that, like, put a lot of lift in everyone's, spirits, and they were out hunting more because they figured, hey, it's only 10 hours and I'm going to see another quality buck. And so it's that kind of statistics. But, just to give some shouts out, maybe I spent the last probably decade or so working with the guys at Winchester Ammunition. They're based here in Alton, Illinois, across the river. And I learned a whole lot about the hunting industry working with those guys. There's some great people over there at Winchester. Obviously make the best ammunition in the country. Got to meet some other folks at Browning Ammunition. And so I would definitely give them some props for working with me and giving me a chance to get into the industry a little bit over the years. And, look forward maybe to working with those guys again here sometime soon.
Yeah, as well as myself, and on behalf of our listeners, all across North America, and we even have some veterans that are in country. They listen to the show, so we're global and we're growing, and it's people like you that make our shows a success. So, Jim McPherson, thank you so much for being a guest of Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks for having me, Bruce. Appreciate it.
Stay tuned for the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're going to go down to Ohio and visit with Tom Denny. Tom is the owner and founder of Woods and Water Addiction, and he's got a partner in there, Darren Woods. They were established in 2014, and they experience Florida, Texas, Kentucky, and Ohio. They do a little fishing and a lot of hunting. So listen up, and he's going to share some secrets about how he put down a big buck by letting somebody else have his stand.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.